Hi all, welcome back.
I know you're itching to know how I made this flyer, so without further ado, let's jump right into this. So the first thing that we are going to do is to open up the canvas. So you want to go to File, and then you want to click on New, and then you want to make sure your width is 10, your height 10, resolution 300, and we are going to hit Create. First thing that we want to do is to bring in the background images that we are going to apply to this. And also know that I will have a link to all the images in the description below so you can download and follow along. I'm going to go to the folder, and the first thing that we want to do is to bring in a couple of backgrounds. So I have this background that I'm going to bring in. This will be the first one. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to rescale this. And I'm going to set it like that. I'm going to double click to deselect. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to hold down my shift and I'm going to scale it. I'm going to basically stretch it. Next thing that you want to do is to bring in the different layering of your background. So first of all, I'm going to click on this image and I'm going to take down the opacity just a little so it's not so strong. I'm going to go to my folder, and then you want to bring in this image. So I'm just going to drag this image into our Photoshop, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it like that. I'm going to move it up, and then I'm going to hold on my shift, and I want to do something like this. And then I'm going to double click to deselect, and then you want to take down the opacity of this one as well. So I have something like this. So I'm going to keep it at about 85. I'm going to go to Image Adjustment and then Bright and Contrast, and I'm going to increase this just a little, and I'm going to take the contrast down so you get this rich color. I'm going to click OK. So now that we have this, I'm going to take my eraser. You want to make sure you're on the right layer, and then with my eraser, it will ask me if I want this image to be turned into a smart object. You want to say yes, and then you just want to brush the top area of your image, just like that. Okay, so now that we have this, I want to bring in one more image. I'm going to go for this, and I'm going to drag it into our working file. And I'm going to move it up, and I'm going to set it right there, something like that. And I'm going to take down the opacity of this as well. I know you're wondering, it's like, this is too many layering, and I'm doing this on purpose. So I'm going to set this on the bottom, and I'm going to take down the top opacity just a little. So we have something like this. So stay with me. I know you're wondering, what about the watermark? We are going to put something on top, so it doesn't really matter that much. So from here, we want to bring in one more image that we are going to lay on top. So we go to our folder, and then I'm going to bring in this image, and I'm going to pull it and release it right there. I'm going to set it at the top, and I'm going to stretch it just like that to fit. And I'm going to double click to deselect. So with the layer selected, you want to change the blend mode to screen. So we have something like this. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my first image that I brought in, and I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to erase that area. So now that we have this, the last thing that I'm going to do is to add a gradient. So I'm going to click on my bottom image and I'm going to go to adjustment, gradient, and I want to add a blue. So I'm going to double click on my gradient color, click on my stop color, and then I want to change it to this blue, something like that. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to change this other one too. You can just click within the other color you already have, so it sort of gives you a match. And I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to change the direction of my angle. And as you can see, it's giving me a different look. And I am pleased with this look. And so I'm going to click OK, and now we are out of it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take down the opacity just a little. The last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take my eraser tool and I'm going to gradually erase the gradient. I want to keep the color more towards the top. So now that we have our background all set for us, now we can begin to bring in the other elements. So I'm going to go to my folder and I want to bring in our subject. So I'm going to pull it and I'm going to drop it in here. And we want to move our subject layer all the way to the top. And then we are going to cut out our subject. So like I've always taught you, use the quick select tool and then click on select subject. Photoshop will generate an outline around your subject for you. So once we have this, all you need to do is go down to your layers panel and click on the layer mask icon. It's going to cut out the subject for you. But notice that when we zoom in, a little bit of our subject is cut off. So to bring it back, all you need to do is pick up your brush, make sure that your foreground is white. Know that white reveals and black hides. So with our layer mask activated, we are just going to paint in this area. And notice that while I'm painting, it's not showing because if you look up here, my flow is at 8%. I want to take it all the way to 100. And now when we begin to paint, you see that it shows very well. I'm going to decrease my brush head and I'm just going to softly finish this area off. And we are good. So I'm going to zoom out. Now we have our subject. I'm going to click my move tool and I'm going to scale my subject up just a little bit like that. I'm going to bring my subject down a little and set her right here. I'm going to increase her just a little bit more. And we're going to take it down just like that. And notice that our subject is not smiling. So since this is a party, we want it to be fun. So we're going to do something to our subject. So we're going to make our subject smile. I know you're like, what? How is that possible? I'm going to show you how to do that. But before we do that, I want to show you what I typically do. You go to Image, Adjustment, Brightness, and Contrast, making sure your layer is selected. We want to add a little bit more richness to our subject. So I'm just going to increase the contrast just a little, and that's it. I'm going to click OK. And now what we are going to do with our subject layer selected for us, we want to go to Filter, and then we want to choose Liquify. So in Liquify, you have the option of distorting your image. You can make it into a caricature or cartoonish. So in this case, we only want to work on the lips. So as you can see on the right-hand side property bar, you see that you have different options. You can make the nose a little bit bigger, wider, and all of that. But we want to just concentrate on the mouth. So under the mouth, you see where it says smile. We want to take the smile all the way up. We want to take it all the way up. And notice that while we do that, our subject begins to have a little bit of a smile effect. If I take it all the way back, you realize our subject wasn't smiling, but all the way up, you get a little bit of the subject smiling. It's not that much, but at least it changes the expression on the face. And we're just going to click OK. That's all we wanted. So I'm going to go back to my folder, and we want to bring in this balloon. We're going to drop it into our file, and I'm going to set it here and rotate just like that. I'm going to increase it just a little, and I'm going to zoom in by holding down my Control and Alt and panning on my mouse. So I'm going to move this layer below my subject. I'm going to set it right there. I'm going to move it just a little, just so. And then I'm going to decrease opacity just a little. I'm going to take it up. Okay, so now that we have this, we want to add more of the balloon. So I'm going to make a duplicate of this, and I'm going to set it right there. I'm going to scale it down. I'm going to move it up like that. And I think I want to move my subject down just a little. I'm going to set my balloon here. I'm going to move this down. And then what I'm going to do with this balloon, I want to change the color. So you want to go to Image, Adjustment, and you want to go to Hue, Saturation. You want to just take the lightness all the way to 100. And notice that it takes that balloon, it takes out the color. And we're going to repeat the same process. I'm going to make a duplicate, and I'm going to move this, rotate. So the next thing is to type in the theme of this flyer. So I'm going to click on my text tool, and I'm going to click within my canvas, and I'm going to type in the wet white, and I'm going to scale it this way, a little bit bigger. And then you want to double click on the side of your layer. And then we are going to add a couple of layer style. So we're going to add a bevel and a contour. We are also going to add a stroke effect. And then we're going to add a sheen. We're going to add a gradient. And then we're going to add a little bit of drop shadow. So if you click on your bevel and you go into bevel, you see that my style is inner bevel, my technique is smooth, and my depth, I have it at 22. My size, I have it at 13, and my soften is at 15. I kept my angle at 90, altitude at 30, and then the gloss contour, I used a ring. So just note all of these options so that yours can look just like mine. And then when you go down to contour, I basically have my range at 50 and the contour is linear. And the strokes, I have my stroke thickness around my text at 5 pixels. And the position is outside, stroke not inside. And my blend mode is normal. My opacity is at 100. And notice that the outline color is white. Okay, so from there, you go to the satin. The satin is where you add a little bit of the sheen. So the blend mode is normal, and I chose a goldish color. If you want the specific color, it's FAACO5. So that is what I used. My angle is at 90 and my distance is at 61. My size is at 68. And with this contour, I went with a rolling slope descending contour. So just take a note of all of this so you get something accurate. And if you want something else too, you can go ahead and change the font, whatever you want. That's up to you. So the next style that I added was the gradient overlay. Now the gradient overlay, I went with just a basic. The blend mode is normal. I left my gradients, as you can see, and my scale is at 60%, angle is at 93. You can leave it at 90 or 95. And then I added a little bit of a shadow effect. So if you want a little bit more shadow, you can do it or keep it the way I have mine. And I'm going to click OK. So this is what we have. And you can even increase your font style just a little bit. I like it like this. So the next thing that we are going to do is to add the rest of the text. So I'm going to click on my text and I'm going to continue. I'm going to click somewhere here and I'm going to change my text to BBuzz. I'm going to change my font to BBuzz and I want the bold and I'm going to type in all and I'm just going to rescale this to be something like that. I'm going to take it down just a little. I'm going to set it here and I'm going to go to my property and my VA. I want to space out my text just a little so it's not touching. I'm going to collapse that and I'm going to take that same font. I'm going to make a duplicate and I'm going to set it right here for the party. And I'm going to bring that below my other text. I want it right below my all text. And then I'm going to highlight and then type in party. Set it. And then I'm going to also rescale this so it's almost the same size as the party. So something like this for both. And I'm going to move this down just a touch, something like that. I'm going to move it in just a little. And now what I'm going to do is that I want to bring in an image that I'm going to infuse onto my text. So we go back to our folder and we're going to click on this silver image and we're going to drop it in here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to rescale it like this. And I'm going to set it right there. And then what I'm going to do is on top. So I'm going to hold down my Alt. And notice that the image I brought in is right on top of the text all. And so I'm going to hold down my Alt and I'm going to clip that image to my text. And this is what you have. Stay with me. That's not all we're doing to the text. So before I do anything else, I'm going to make a copy of this text of that image and I'm going to bring that down to the party. I'm going to set it on top of the party. And I'm going to hold down my Alt and I'm going to clip that as well. So we have something like this. And now we're going to do something a little bit more. So I'm going to double click on my layer and then we're going to add some text effect. So I'm going to add a bevel, a contour. We want to add a stroke effect. And then we want to add a little bit of a shadow as well. So for the shadow, I'm going to double click, and then I'm going to take down the shadow a little, and then even the opacity, reduce it. So we have something like this. And I'm going to click OK. And we're going to do the same thing for the other text. I'm going to double click. And then we're going to add a bevel, contour, and then a stroke, and then also a drop shadow. So something like this. And I mean, the bevel, I have it as inner bevel. The technique is smooth. It's very similar to what I did to the gold text. But then again, it's all, preference. Just playing around with the different effect, you will arrive at the same solution. Or if you want something a little bit different, you can do that. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click on the image I infused on my text. Go to Image, Adjustments, Brightness, and Contrast. I want to brighten that image a little. I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to do the same thing for this other image. I'm going to go to Image, Adjustment, Contrast, and Brightness. And I'm going to take the brightness to 44 so it matches with the other one. The next thing that we want to do is keep layering with all the other text. So I'm going to pick my text tool, and I'm going to type in the heading. So I'm going to reduce my text size, and I'm going to change this to human with my caps on. I'm going to type in. I'm going to rescale it down. And then you want to go to your property, and then we want to space it out. So I'm taking my VA and I'm just spreading it just like that. And I'm going to collapse this. I'm going to set this right there. Image in your layers panel, just add a drop shadow. If it's too much, all you need to do is just take it down. Or add just a little, but not too much. Actually, like this way. So the next thing that we're going to do, I'm just going to make a duplicate of this text. I'm going to pull it down here. I'm going to highlight, and I'm going to type in Saturday. And now we're going to select our text and then make a duplicate again. I'm going to set it right there. And we are going to give it the day of the event. And then we're going to rescale this just a little. Okay, so we want to add the time. So I'm going to click on my text tool, click somewhere here. We're going to type in the time, and I'm going to highlight, and we're going to choose B Buzz. I'm actually going to choose B Buzz with the bold, and we're going to rescale. And now what I'm going to do is that for the bottom, we need to add a few more text. So before we do that, I'm going to increase the spacing of the heading, just like that. And I'm going to move it to center. Okay, so now that we have this, we are going to finish it off. And oh, don't forget to save your work as you do it. So I'm just going to move this down. I'm going to select my text and I'm going to move that down. And notice that when you click on your text, it selects the image on top. And so you want to make sure you actually click on the font text, and that way you can move it down. And I'm going to move my text above. I'm going to move this above, so it's on top of the all. So we are looking good. We are looking fabulous. I like this. So we just have a few more things to do and we are done. So I'm just going to click on my text tool and I'm going to type in, I'm going to type Now I want to add a little bit of a shadow to our text below. So I'm going to double click on that text layer. I'm going to double click at the very end so it will open up the blending options. I'm going to add a drop shadow, but I'm going to double click within the drop shadow style. I'm going to change the color we want, like a white, and I'm going to click OK. I'm going to take down the opacity so it's not too much, and I'm going to take down the shadow a little so we have a little bit of depth, but it's not too much. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to zoom in and we are almost done. We just have one more thing to do, and that is to add a few more information for our a few more information that is needed for this party. So I'm going to click on my foreground. I'm going to change the color by clicking the color within my text, my goldish color text. And I'm going to click OK. And I want to create a new layer. And then I'm going to click on my rectangular marquee and I'm going to draw a rectangle on the very bottom of my flyer. And then with my paint bucket, I'm just going to paint that in. I'm going to press Ctrl D to deselect. I'm going to move this down a little and I'm going to move my address down as well as the location. And now the last thing that we are going to do is to add the bottom text. So I'm going to click on my text tool and then I'm just going to go ahead to type this in. Again, I'm just going to fast forward so you can see. So now that we have our text, I'm going to highlight and I'm going to make it all black. Now we're going to change our font style. We're going to choose human. So it's humans 521 BT. And I'm going to take down the scale. I'm going to make it 18, increase it just a little, 24. So I'm going to rescale this down a little like that. And I'm going to set it right there for now. And then I'm going to go to my property and we want to open this up. So it's going to be something like this. And I'm going to recenter this. And as you can see, I have my snap already turned on. So it helps me to center all my text and everything else that I bring in that I want it centered. So if your snap is not turned on, all you need to do is go to view and you can see snap right there. You click on that and then that is activated for you. So with this set, there is two more things or one thing that I think that will make this flyer a little bit more interesting, and that is some bling bling or some pizzazz. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It's very easy to do. So the first thing that we are going to do, we're going to create a new layer. So I'm going to move to the top layer, and I'm going to click on my plus icon to create a new layer. And then with my foreground as black, I'm going to pick my paint bucket and I'm going to paint that in. Oh, we lost everything. Don't worry, it's just a layer. I got you there, huh? All right, so what we are going to do, you want to go to filter, and then you want to go to render and choose lens flare. And we want to choose the movie prime. That is what we want. And you can play with this however you want, but I'm going to leave it at 94 and I'm going to click OK. So we have the spotlight, but we can't see anything else. So we want to change this layer to screen. And now we can begin to see everything. We're going to move this and we're going to set it right there. I love it. It's already given it a little bit of a bling. So I'm going to make a duplicate of this so it pops a little bit more. So we're going to make 2 more copies of the same thing. I'm going to set that right here. And I'm going to zoom out. I want to change the position of this one. And I'm going to set it right there. I'm going to move it out a little. And I'm going to set it right there. And then I'm going to make a duplicate of that again so we get a more intense light effect. So we have these two. And then I also want to add some here. So I'm just going to make a duplicate. And then I'm going to move that here. Now, the last thing that we want to do, I'm going to add one more duplicate and I'm going to move that here. So we have something here too. Okay, so now the last thing that we want to do is to add a little bit more sparkle on the glitter text. So to do that, you will have to get a free light brush effect, which you can apply. I already downloaded one from online, and I will try to have it with all the images so you can just import it into your Photoshop. But basically, you go to your brush and you want to go find that type of brush. And I've already used it, so you can see it's right here. And this is the way it looks. So what I'm going to do is that you want to first of all make sure you have a new layer selected. And then what I'm going to do is you want to make sure your foreground is white, and with the size at 448, I can just begin to do a little dabbing here and there. And as you can see, it's beginning to add a little bit of a bling or a sheen to my text. And it's just random. So you can randomly place these to have this cool effect on your text and also around this area as well. So you have a little bit more of a bling effect, which really makes the whole thing come alive. If you want to increase it just a little so you can have a little bit more of a dramatic effect, you can also do that. So as you can see, I can increase that I can even go a little bit further so I can have something like this. Oof, I love it. And then do the same thing here. So that is it. Layer. Make sure that all your layers are unlocked. And then you want to click on the bottom layer, go all the way up, holding down your shift. You want to click on the top. It's going to select everything. We want to group it. So you go to this icon, which is the folder icon. It will group everything for you. You want to hold down your shift, Control, Alt, E, and Photoshop will generate one file for you. Go to our filter, and then you want to choose the camera raw filter. I always like to increase my saturation a little bit. I like the way it looks. I want to also play around with my contrast. It makes it look much better. And I can take down my exposure or increase it. My shadows, I can take it down just a little. And you can play with all the other options that are available to you till you get your desired effect. But I like what I see. So I'm satisfied with this. So I'm going to click OK. And the other thing is, if this is even too much, you can take down the opacity just a little, and then it will blend in with the original image, so you have something in between. And that is it, guys. This is it. I hope that this tutorial was fun and it's something that you can't wait to try it. I really, really want to see you guys do this so you can send it to me so I can see what you guys were able to do. So with this said, this brings us to the end of another exciting tutorial. So please like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell for all future uploads. And as always, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.